Flames spread across the ground as Alice Nia stood with her back to the knights, her blonde hair lit by the firelight. She didn't turn around. The knights faced her from a distance. One of them pleaded for her to come back, calling out to her as their sword saintess, as if the title might still reach her. Another knight shouted after her, saying she didn't have to keep going like this, that she was heading down the wrong road. But their voices faded as Alice Nia silenced them herself. Then the bishop's voice entered, sharp and furious. His aged face filled the view as he demanded to know why Alice Nia had slaughtered the very people she had sworn to defend. The accusation hung heavy as the fire continued to burn around her. Alice stood to the side, flames curling behind her. The bishop kept speaking, asking whether someone like her still deserved the empire's faith, or the respect he himself had once placed in her, when Alice was a child. From above, the bishop looked down on her and reminded her that she had been chosen by God. He spoke as if this path, soaked in blood and fire, was meant to cleanse her sins, as if obedience itself was salvation. The distance between them became clear in the wide view, the bishop standing high above, untouched, while Alice remained below, surrounded by bodies and fire. He declared that for the empire to endure, she had only one choice: to follow God's laws without question. His face hardened as he continued, saying her pain, her fear, and her weakness were flaws that needed to be erased. Only then, he claimed, could she become the perfect sword saintess. Scene shifted to the present. Alice finally lifted her head. Her expression was calm, but her eyes searched his face as she questioned what he had said about raising her, about trusting her. She said there was something she wanted to ask him, as she asked if he felt any regret. Turning slightly, she spoke again, saying he was the one who had pushed her onto a path filled with nothing but killing and obedience, stripping everything else away. The bishop watched her in silence. Then his body began to shine, golden light pouring out as massive wings formed behind him. He declared that she had fallen too far, that she could no longer be saved, and that he would erase this mistake with his own hands. He rose into the air, a vast golden magic circle forming above him, marked with the name of his spell. Power gathered as the light intensified. From the sky, a towering beam of gold descended. From the shattered ground, a vortex of swords twisted upward, metal spinning in a violent spiral as the earth continued to break apart beneath it. Alice rose into the air as the storm answered her call. Purple energy wrapped around her, spectral blades circling her body as she released the attack known as Steel Tempest. The bishop thrust his hand forward and formed a shield of golden light. He named it his Holy Light Barrier, pouring power into it just as the first wave of purple blades slammed against it. His foot hit the ground with force, cracks spreading out from the impact as he anchored himself in place. He looked up, eyes wide, strain clear on his face as the pressure kept building. Behind Alice, something far darker took shape. A massive shadow emerged, its form unmistakable as a dragon, purple eyes burning as she invoked demonic dragon death soul. The air around her grew heavier as its presence filled the battlefield. The bishop clenched his teeth, holding his ground as the power pressed down on him. Then the dragon's enormous claw came crashing down onto the golden barrier, sending a sharp metallic clash through the air. Pain and shock flashed across the bishop's face as he shouted, demanding to know what kind of power she was wielding. In his mind, the sensation felt like being ripped apart by a living nightmare, as though an evil dragon itself was tearing into him. He continued to fight against the overwhelming force above, eyes locked upward as the clash of light, shadow, and steel raged on. The king rode forward on horseback, wrapped in animal pelt armor as a golden aura flared around him, shaped like a roaring lion. Power surged outward as he activated Lion's roar of invincibility, his presence dominating the battlefield. A sharp order rang out, telling the troops to attack at once. Soldiers rushed ahead with weapons raised, charging straight into the fight. Steel collided as swords met, clashes spreading across the field. In other areas, different groups were already locked in combat, the battle unfolding on all sides. Amid the chaos, the king seized a brown-haired man. He shouted that he had finally caught Lin Tion, his voice filled with satisfaction. From behind, Klein stepped forward without hesitation and struck in a single clean motion, instantly severing the goblin's head. Lin Tion's body dropped forward as his head fell away, the scene washed in red tones as his form disappeared from view. Klein stood over the body and laughed, celebrating what he believed was Lin Tion's death. Across the battlefield, soldiers erupted into cheers, shouting that they had won. Someone called out that the enemy leader was dead and demanded the remaining forces surrender. Yet Lin Tion's face, shown elsewhere, carried only confusion. In his thoughts, he wondered why they hated him so much. Suddenly, a figure identical to the king looked up and shouted in shock, recognizing someone who should not have been there. A hooded figure stepped forward, red eyes glowing beneath the shadow of the cloak. The true goblin revealed himself, calmly saying that Alice Nia had come with him by choice, and that he was the one now in an awkward position. He casually asked how his substitute's acting had been, sounding confident that it had fooled everyone. Nearby, King, now shown in golden armor, looked toward the goblin with a measured expression. He admitted that he finally understood what had happened and that he had underestimated him. They had all been completely deceived. Klein then stepped forward and requested a duel. He said he had spent 6 months training, driven by burning hatred, preparing for this moment. The goblin turned slightly, a faint smile visible beneath his hood, and accepted, saying he would give Klein the chance he wanted. Klein declared that he had come today for revenge for himself, for Alice, and for the entire empire. In his eyes, this burning fury was unstoppable, and he demanded to know whether Lin Tion could survive it. The moment the words left his mouth, Klein lunged forward and struck. He attacked head-on, convinced that his strength alone would be enough to finish the monster standing alone before him. Lin Tion didn't move from his spot. He simply reached out and pulled a short, razor-edged dagger into his hand. There was no fear in his expression. Instead, a faint, mocking smile appeared as he lifted the blade and met Klein's punch directly. At that instant, a terrifying wave of power surged from behind Klein. His strike swelled with explosive force, far beyond what it had been a second earlier. Cracks raced across Lin Tion's dagger, spreading faster than the eye could follow. Then the blade shattered completely. Shards flew outward like arrows, tearing into Lin Tion's body. Blood spilled freely as wounds spread across his torso. The surrounding goblins were shaken to their core. They had never imagined seeing Lin Tion injured, let alone pushed to the brink like this. Klein didn't give him a chance to recover. The moment Lin Tion's defense broke, another punch followed, aimed straight for his head. Klein believed this blow would end everything. Lin Tion's body was hurled away, and a violent explosion of energy erupted at the center of the battlefield. Dust and smoke surged upward, swallowing the scene and blinding everyone nearby. When the air finally settled, the monsters stared in horror at the massive crater left behind. Some goblins cried out in panic, asking how their boss, who had promised to lead them across the world, could fall like this. Another hurriedly swore that even if their leader was gone, the dream of conquest would continue. Klein and King Charles II stood stunned by what they were seeing. They exchanged uneasy looks, both wondering the same thing: was Lin Tion truly dead? The answer came instantly. Klein suddenly coughed up blood, his face contorting in pain. A bone-chilling, killing intent wrapped around him from behind. Before anyone could react, a horrifying sight unfolded. A cold blade had pierced straight through the chest of a knight standing nearby. Through the drifting smoke, Lin Tion slowly rose to his feet, still holding the posture of having just thrown the weapon. An overwhelming pressure poured from his body, sending fear through everyone watching. His eyes glowed crimson with murderous intent as he mocked the humans for believing they could kill him so easily. Klein staggered, clutching at his wounds, unable to understand what had happened. He shouted in disbelief, cursing Lin Tion for surviving. Nearby, King Charles II watched his most trusted subordinate fall, and a roar of grief and rage tore from his throat. Before the king could act, thunder cracked through the sky. A bolt of lightning slammed down in the next second, reducing Klein to charred remains. With open contempt, Lin Tion stepped on the corpse, pulled free the spear of Zeus, and turned his gaze toward the king. He openly taunted him, claiming all that rage for himself, and calmly asked who would be next. Charles II burned with fury and prepared to charge forward, but Herbert rushed to stop him. He warned the king to wait, saying that things weren't as simple as they appeared. This might not even be Lin Tion's true body. Herbert quickly scanned the battlefield. He knew that losing control now would mean total annihilation. As he spoke, massive monsters surged forward like a tidal wave, closing in on the remaining human forces. A gigantic goblin rushed toward them, and Herbert charged to intercept it, driving his weapon clean through its body. To his shock, the creature's strength was far weaker than expected. That realization filled him with dread. This goblin, too, wasn't the real one. The situation collapsed rapidly. A thunderous roar erupted from behind, stunning several members of the order. Slaughter followed immediately. Gawain climbed up a horse's hind legs in one smooth motion. His void dagger flashed, killing a knight instantly. Without the royal battle standard support, the knight's strength barely posed a challenge. Nearby, Go Kwang used chains to bind two knights, lifted them into the air, and hurled them straight into the goblin horde. Elsewhere, a four-armed goblin charged forward and brought its massive axe down, cutting a knight apart in a single strike. Bloodshed spread across the battlefield with terrifying speed. Watching his comrades fall, one knight forced himself forward and drove his spear into the shoulder of the four-armed goblin. Though he managed to wound it, fear filled his eyes as he desperately shouted for Herbert to protect the king and get him out alive. Herbert, riding hard and waving the battle standard, fought to break the stunned state gripping their forces. He tried to escort the emperor away, but it was already too late. In the distance, atop a colossal beast, Leah drew her bow to its limit. An arrow glowing with eerie green magic tore through the air at impossible speed and struck Herbert from behind, driving toward his heart. The impact slammed into his shoulder, sending a surge of agony through him. Seeing his final protector gravely wounded, King Charles II screamed in horror. Herbert collapsed, his vision fading. With the last of his strength, he urged the king to abandon him and escape. The battlefield echoed with unwilling fury as the loyal knights stared at the devastation the monsters had unleashed. Lin Tion walked forward slowly, his expression filled with triumph and scorn. He mocked the humans openly, declaring that it was their arrogance, their desire to wipe out the goblin race, that had led them to this miserable end.